Go. Good morning, everybody. My name's Nick Gowans. I'm an action coach, part of No Limits network based in the Oxford area. I'm joined today, firstly, by my colleague Karen, who helps run Action Coach No Limits in the background, doing all sorts of roles, and she'll be administering any questions and so forth today. So if you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat box. But my main task and pleasure this morning is to introduce David Watts from WPA Healthcare.
Morning. Good morning.
David. How are you doing? You looking forward to this?
I am indeed. Good morning. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Karen, for inviting me today.
Okay. Well, we are looking forward to hearing about modern healthcare in the 21st century, and WPA is certainly one of the leading providers of that. And David is somebody who operates broadly in the No Limits area in the south of England. He operates with small and medium-sized businesses predominantly, but offers some services that when I first met David, I wasn't aware that they did. So hopefully it'll be educational for everybody and we'll learn something today. And if you have any questions, I'll say please put them in the chat box and we'll pick them up towards the end of the session. But for now, I'd like to hand over to David, who I think has got a little bit of a few slides to run through for us. You okay to go, David?
I'm good to go, Nick. Thank you very much.
All right, over to you. I'll go on mute.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. So just a quick thumbs up, you can see my screen, would be appreciated. Wonderful. Thank you. So again, Nick, Karen, thank you very much for inviting me today. I'm going to take maybe 15-20 minutes just to run through not a significant number of slides, but I'd just like to talk to you about my experience and my journey to where I am now, which is quite pertinent to the subject of the day, workplace healthcare. And then I'd like to invite potentially any questions you, Nick, Karen, or any member of the audience might have at the end of that. So in terms of content, I'd just like to tell you a little bit more about myself, to your point, Nick, a bit of an introduction of myself there. I'd like to then go into the why. Why am I doing this? That's just as important as the what, as I would describe. I then want to describe a little bit more about the company I represent, this wonderful company called WPA, Western Provident Association, and what we do in the field of workplace private medical insurance, private healthcare. That's what I want to run through today. So let's kick off with the first part of that agenda there, and that's a little bit more about me. This is me and the family. Clearly, this was wear a black coat day. You can see me at the back there, my good lady wife, Michelle. And admittedly, this was a couple of years ago now. Two daughters, my eldest, Isabel, and my youngest, Lillian. This is obviously part of my why here. But more so, let me tell you a little bit more about the journey to doing what I'm doing now. And I'll do that through just describing who I've worked for and a particularly troublesome experience that I had during 2023, which has made me move to do what I'm doing now. So my journey, work-wise, has been with some relatively large companies that you probably would have heard of. So through to my 30s, I worked for a large oil company, a company you may have heard of that makes brown fizzy water in red cans. And also for my sins working for a gentleman with the surname Murdoch at Sky Television. But it's quite interesting. Those three companies there, although American-led, clearly all three of them, were very much UK entities. And during my 30s, while I was working for those companies, I didn't have any form of healthcare provision. Maybe that was the timing, maybe that was my stature in those companies. Maybe it was just a myriad of other reasons, but I didn't have any healthcare provision. That changed when I started to work for a couple of American corporates that are not, as per the three along the top, which are B2C companies. Franklin Covey and OC Tanner are B2B companies. Very briefly, Franklin Covey is a training company. You may have heard some of the content that they deliver, delivered by a gentleman called Mr. Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People being one of his flagship books, and a company you probably have never heard of called OC Tanner. who are involved in employee recognition. They do various SaaS systems that allow people to say thank you to each other. All of that's irrelevant to this conversation here, other than once I joined these companies here, or this company in particular, some 20 years ago, for the first time, I began to get some health cover, some health provision with that employer. Maybe that's because they're American-led and everybody the other side of the pond had that, or maybe it was just because of the timing when this became more prevalent in the UK. So I was working for these companies, again, based where I am now, quite close to Oxford. But what was quite fundamentally different as I started to work for these companies with private healthcare was the usage of that and what it gave me as a person. During that period, those people in the black coats that you've just seen on the prior slide and myself started to need things that those policies, those healthcare policies started to provide. I had two girls that were growing up, were babies initially. I had a wife that has suffered some ill health. And I had me developing an aging body that started to require a little bit of maintenance that wasn't always given great provision through the NHS and so on. So me being a beneficiary of private healthcare has taught me to acknowledge, recognize, and be very grateful as an employee for that benefit. Let me talk to you about something quite close to my heart and something quite difficult to talk about, to be frank, but something that's helped me come to the table today in the job that I'm doing. I just want to tell you briefly about two people close to me in my life. The first one is Ian, my uncle Ian, and the other one is a gentleman called Malcolm, who's a good friend of mine. It's important to do what I do, but more important is the why. And the experience that I've had with both Ian and Malcolm during the latter part of 22 and the early part of 23 have encouraged me to make the transition to now work and represent with my own business, WPA. I'm not going to put pictures of these guys up on the screen. It's not appropriate to do so. But let's call this guy Ian. Ian is sadly no longer with us. Ian passed away in September of this year. And Malcolm, thankfully, is still with us. Maybe not for that much longer. Who knows? Why am I telling you about Ian and Malcolm? Well, I'll tell you for why. Ian, unfortunately, had quite a serious aneurysm earlier, as I've just described, and without going into detail, had some of the worst healthcare I've ever seen or witnessed. Something that was just totally upsetting. Again, I'm not here to rubbish the NHS. I'll be talking about the NHS in a moment, but the provision that he had there in terms of his care was just abysmal, absolutely abysmal. And watching somebody suffering something like that in the first instance with some, pitiful care for a number of reasons, was added to the pain for him and everybody around him. Comparatively, and coincidentally at the same time, my good friend here, Malcolm, developed quite a severe version or severe condition of cancer. Malcolm had some really good healthcare provision, not with WPA, I hasten to add, but that provision has enabled him to have some of the, in terms of comparison, some of the best healthcare that I've seen through private provision. He's had drugs that weren't available on the NHS. He's just an extraordinary journey through his cancer care, and comparatively, seeing those two gentlemen experience that encouraged me to make the leap to the company that I now represent with my own business. Having been a policyholder of WPA for some time, and now I do this. This is my what. That's the why. I am now a healthcare partner with WPA Healthcare Practice. Healthcare Practice is a subsidiary, a sister company of WPA, who are the insurer. And we operate out of Taunton. We're an organisation that does healthcare, does private healthcare provision, private medical insurance, and nothing else. We don't do anything else. No other insurance, no other product, no other function. Private healthcare is the only thing that the organization do. If during this conversation, forgive the plug here, if anybody wants my contact details, you'll know on the bottom of my contact details is my own website. If anybody wants to start a conversation after this, I'd be more than happy to have that conversation, because I, in my role, look after various small SMEs and larger companies with private medical insurance, and I'd be happy to have a conversation after this dialogue today. So let's get into a little bit more detail. What actually is healthcare insurance? Well, there's 3 different versions here, or 3 different levels, let's say. Let's start with what people traditionally know as PMI, private medical insurance. And this is, as I would describe it, not reading from the slide here, should any member of you or your family or your company become ill, you will have the provision of the best possible healthcare at a location of your choice, delivered by a consultant of your choice, and as best as we can manage at a time of your choice. Okay, that is private healthcare insurance. It's younger brother, let's say, and cheaper option, and often quite prevalent within the workplace, is the new member of the party, the new arrival at the party, health cash plans. And these, as you can see here, provide cash back and benefits towards everyday healthcare expenses. So if you've got employees that are going to the dentist regularly, we'd hope they would, wearing these things, or eye protection or contact lenses, all of those things are covered under this policy. It's a policy where you are almost encouraged to claim to get money back on the regular expenses that you or your employees make. And then thirdly, we all know the issues with trying to get an NHS dentist now. There is almost a breakaway policy which just has a cash benefit provision for dental requirements there. So they are the 3 provisions, the 3 sectors, the 3 different variants, if you like, of private medical insurance. Why would somebody have health insurance then? I've deliberately put an out-of-date slide on here. I've deliberately done that. I wish our politicians would and do this and then say, this is what we're going to do, this is what we foresee, and this is what it looked like. I'm almost doing that here. Let's just look at these specific claims going back to the early 2020s. NHS waiting list set to hit 10 million by the end of the year. They haven't, but the BBC reported 2 weeks ago that they've hit 7.77 million. That's an extraordinary figure. And there's a figure of 300,000 patients now waiting for more than one treatment. That has been exceeded. The doctors fear they can't, clear this backlist. Of course they can't. It's growing each and every day. You make your own judgment about endangering patients. The NHS, although we work in tandem with them, let me make that very clear. I'm not here to rubbish the NHS any more than I did about my uncle's treatment, let's say. But the NHS is in some dire straits at the moment. And a figure that was quoted by the IFA magazine in a publication earlier this year was that this year has shown a 65% increase in the numbers of inquiries of people looking for private medical insurance. It's no surprise with the stats that I've just shared on this slide here, right? Some people say they can self-insure. Let's put some money aside for when these things crop up. Just have a quick look at the numbers here. Quite frightening. So if you do plan to self-insure, put a bit of money aside in case this happens, I suggest you start saving. So what are the benefits of health insurance? Out of the way. The obvious one is prompt access for diagnosis and treatment. some people call this a queue jumper. Let's get myself in to get that treatment and not wait the typically current 18 months. If you have anything musculoskeletal, the average wait time for an operation is 18 months. Imagine if you're a small business owner there. Imagine if you're a plumber. Imagine if you're an organization doing something physically. Imagine if you have employees doing something physically. What impact that might have on your business. This is why people purchase PMI for prompt access and diagnosis for that treatment. Something unique to WPA is the freedom to choose where and when you want that treatment. Even when you do get a call from the NHS to have an operation, it could be some distance away, both on a cost and availability perspective. That may not work for you. You've got the added cost of maybe some accommodation if you're a day patient. It's troublesome. I've already said we operate in conjunction with the NHS, but this is a key consideration as well. Privacy and cleanliness. Do you really want to be on an open ward, or do you like a room of your own? And the ability, as is with our policies here, to bring one of your family in to stay with you at the time, and privacy and cleanliness is very important. And I've already described, as per the experience of my friend Malcolm, the provision of these drugs that are not typically available in the NHS simply because of cost. These targeted cancer drugs are eye-wateringly expensive. So getting those is life-saving in all degrees. Where some reason my slide won't progress. I am sorry. Let's go back on there. There we go. Yeah, so just going into what WPA, drilling down into our organization. So you may not have heard of WPA. We're not one of the massive players, which is a good thing, right? But we are one of the established players. We've been going since 1901. Not wishing to do a significant history lesson, but the organization traces us back to the 1900s here, where the first health insurance was born, if you like. This is where the premiums of the many pay for the treatment of the few. This was the classic evolution of insurance then. During the 1940s, the organization was born following an amalgamation of a number of hospital funds. And around a similar time, the NHS was formed. You would have heard recently about the anniversary there. It's quite interesting if you think about the NHS and the fact that we pay national insurance. I've often used that term, but I've never actually thought about it. It is a national insurance policy. But the difference with the NHS currently is it's not the premiums of the many paying for the treatment of the few. It's the premiums of the many paying for the premiums of the many. That's part of the problem we've got at the moment. Just, drilling into WPA, we don't have shareholders. This is one of our USPs. We are a not-for-profit organization. So we don't have shareholders. We don't have to pay for fancy adverts on television. We don't have to, have significant costs there. And the key reason for me sharing that is that if you took a policy with WPA, if you provided this wonderful healthcare for your employees, then you wouldn't be paying premiums that are funding shareholders and marketing and the like. You would have a significantly greater proportion of those premiums going into care. Just have a think about that for a minute. And additionally, we may have been going since 1901, but we're a very tech-savvy organization here. And we have some wonderful technology here that allows you to use the policy, either at an employee level or an individual or family level, easily, and access this care, access these cash plans I've just described there, which means that these wonderful call centers that we have at Taunton has people that are simply answering calls on care provision, not on the dilly-dally that isn't covered by that's currently covered by the app, is my point here. We've got some great standards. You can see all those BSI references there. And this is a stat that I particularly like here. You know, if you're going to ask somebody who they're going to recommend, why not ask the people that are providing the care here, the consultants? And, you know, in a survey by Populous, just look at the ones that would recommend us as a provider versus some of the competition, which I'm pained to put on the screen there. That's the competition, not the stat. This is a bit of recognition I do really want to share, because this is massively important. In August this year, the Which Consumer magazine took a survey across the whole of the market, and the only recommended provider through their publication was WPA. The only one. You know, the others they simply wouldn't put their name to. And our service is backed up by you know, a 4.74, 4.8, I think it was, on the 22nd of November Trustpilot review. You know, for the service that we provide. We really are a quality and recognized provider. So who takes our policies? I've described that businesses do, but you know, our sweet spot is the self-employed and SMEs. You know, those are the people that really benefit. That said, we've got some giant companies that work with us, many of which I'm not allowed to reference. One of which I can is Meta, or Facebook as they used to be known. We do all of the provision on a corporate level with them, and some other significant brands, logos that you would know, again, that I'm not allowed to talk to you about, unless maybe it's a one-to-one. But we also we do a lot of work with families and individuals here. But again, our sweet spot is SMEs, is small business owners who are able to get some provision for themselves and their employees, and all of the benefits that brings. I've just put some typical costs here, sort of starting costs for private medical insurance here. If you look at a small business, you know, with sort of 3-4 employees, you can start at about 600 per annum. This is for, you know, for a relatively basic cash plan. You can see here for a 33-year-old single person here, a comparative figure here. That's for full medical insurance. You can see a family of 4 with parents in their 40s. That's a sweet spot, I guess, on a personal or a family policy here. £2,000 a year, and you can see an increase. I'm just being frank with you here. An increase on as one's body gets older now. Risk gets increased for a 62-year-old couple. You know, the price is about £4,000. But I would urge you then to think back to my graphic on the cost of, you know, specific procedures on that guide that I showed earlier. You know, if you're thinking of self-insuring or not doing insurance, you know, in its totality, these are the sort of costs you'll be looking at if you wanted to go privately. The market is significant. The market is significant. You know, with circa 60 million people in this country, we've got 7 million with a PMI policy. This is our lead policy, remember. We've got about a further 3 million. That's not included in that with one of these health cash plans. And we've got something like 3.4 million with just a dental policy here. So, you know, out of that, you know, the income from that on those 3 product lines, this is market, this is not just WPA, is about 6 million. Look at the spread here. Think about my time with, you know, with the 2 big corporates I described there, and getting my healthcare provision through my employer. In the UK, you know, this is something that's prevalent. This is something that's done, you know, by many companies, be they large, be they small, be they very small, be they sole traders. 78% of PMI across the market is through a corporate level, and only 22% are paying for themselves and their families. And it's not just income coming in for us. You know, ourselves and our competitors pay out circa 10 million each year in. Each day rather, in claims. That's a big number, right? Let's drill right down into, as we get towards the back end of this presentation here, right down into healthcare provision for organizations. You know, these figures won't be new to some of you here. You know, an average number of sick days per employee is about 6 days per year. The cost to that, to the economy is, 77 billion, I'm told here. But per employee, that's £700. Per employer, it's significantly more, right? We don't want employees away from the business place, workplace rather, away from providing great customer service for our customers. These are the most common causes of absence. We did a recent poll on this. Short term along the top, long term on the bottom. Don't get worried too much about the percentages here. They don't add up to 100, but this is the percentage of respondents who include these in their top 3. I'm still struggling to get my head around that stat, but don't worry. What is important to look at here is that there is a prevalence here of both physical and mental health issues. We're looking at minor illnesses, but we've got stress over here, mental ill health. There's nothing we can do about that with our policies here, but long term as well, we see mental health being an issue, stress being an issue, and we also see some of the more acute stuff that I described earlier in my presentation here. But these are the typical things, excluding the caring and the minor coughs and colds. We can't touch those. These are the sort of things that are covered by private medical insurance in our policies here. So let me summarize with the key benefits in my final slide here. The key benefits for private medical insurance for employers. The first thing here, that's thinking about the why and not the what. It's the right thing to do, right? It is the right thing to do. If you think about some of the scenarios I've described, if you think about the illnesses that people get, it's just the right thing to do. The right thing to do commercially as well, because you will definitely have, my experience is, that people will have a happier, healthier workforce. It increases well-being, that's a fact. Cost-wise, it attracts and retains talent, period. If you're offering a benefits package that includes private medical insurance, it's more attractive to the person that doesn't. That's stating the obvious here. But more so, it helps you to retain talent, which is a massive, massive issue for a lot of organizations currently. We've all heard about the Great Resignation. It's a lesser resignation if people have got a policy that they don't want to leave behind, particularly if they're going through treatment, particularly if they're they're currently enjoying the benefits that this policy gives to them, their families, and their employees. It produces less absenteeism and less presenteeism. The latter word is not that well known, but this is when Beryl, who has got that dodgy back, but insists on coming into the office, and Beryl can't do the job that she's supposed to do, so she has to be given another job, and or she comes in ill and gives that that illness to other people. Presenteeism is to some employers just as much a problem as absenteeism, believe me. We've talked about that faster access to healthcare service. That's the services. That's the obvious, but it's really, really important. It produces increased engagement and productivity, a better relationship with your employer, but also a greater commitment to deliver and to be productive. I'm not going to go there, but it also has tax implications, positive ones. Obviously, employees often have to declare or should declare on their P11D the benefit that they're receiving as part of a private medical insurance, but additionally, there are some tax benefits on a corporate level that I don't want to go into that many organizations seem to benefit from. So overly, it's a commercial and a moral decision when employers offer this to their employees. So I'll just close on that slide, reminding you again of WPA's wonderful credibility with those awards there, and a point of reference should you want to have a conversation about me further for you, your family, or your employees' healthcare going forward. Nick, Karen, that's me done. I'll put the mic down now. You'll be pleased to hear, and invite any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, David. That was certainly a comprehensive overview of what you have to offer, and I think I certainly learned a lot on the way through, and I hope other people did too. Just got a couple of questions, mindful of time. Just could you talk just a little bit about how technology is sort of impacting the way from a workforce point of view that either the delivery of healthcare services or how it's impacting the healthcare marketplace for smaller to medium-sized employers?
Sure. I'm not going to talk about technology in terms of healthcare provision. I'm not going to start talking about CT scans and MRIs and other tech there because I know little about it. I'm not on the medical side at all. But I can talk about the technology and how in our business and briefly how it impacts our policyholders. I've talked about our wonderful app. Doesn't everybody talk about the great app? But this puts the policy in people's hands and allows them to claim back very, very quickly the cash benefits I've described there, and also have a private medical issue, a treatment authorized very, very quickly. And we've just invested in some significant technology in our call centers that allow people to speak to an operator quickly. The impact of that, I'm not going to rubbish the competition here, but I have had provision with other providers where I've had sometimes been on hold for nearly an hour trying to get something approved, to one point where I didn't actually, I went for some treatment, not knowing if I was covered or not, because I just hung up in the end. The average wait time as a result of that tech in our business, the average wait time for a call to be answered remains at less than 3 minutes. So you get to speak to an operator should you need to do so. So we're invested in tech, and that tech impacts our customers, our policyholders' need.
Very good. Okay, well, I'm just mindful of time. So one just last quick question is just on mental health in the workplace. That's sort of an area of concern that perhaps wasn't there to such a great extent in a decade or so ago. Could you just touch on what, if you've got a comprehensive coverage, what WPA can offer in that area?
For sure, it's a massive issue nationally, globally, and it's become more of a prevalent issue for us in recent years, Nick. Essentially, what any of our policies, excluding cash plans, which is the more junior brother as I described, all of our private medical insurance includes in its core 6 complimentary sessions of counselling that need to be referred to by an EAP, which is called an employee assistance program. One of the employees will phone, will have a dialogue with an operator, and if it's deemed appropriate, then can have 6 sessions included on the policy of counselling. Most people, when they take on the policy, bolt on an additional extra on that, which gives them a further, I believe it's 16 or 20 sessions on top of that, but also gives provision for, should it be required, for residential, inpatient provision, again at a location of one's choice, which is consistent with our offer.
That's very comprehensive. Well, look, thank you very much, David. I think I'm sure for most people on the call or listening to the recording, that's given them a great overview of what WPA has to offer, and particularly introducing them to yourself as somebody part of the No Limits community to talk to and engage with if they've got any questions around healthcare, whether it's as an individual, for their family, or for their employer or the company that they run. So I'd like to say thank you very much for that. You flashed up a couple of times your website and contact details. Do you just want to shout that out one more time so people have got it?
I will. As he says, reaching for his business card. I can be contacted on 07742 757 636, 07742 757 636. Or if you want to find out any more about the information I share, the best source of information is my website, which is wpa.org/David Watts. So I repeat, wpa.org/David Watts. And I'd just like to say another thank you to yourself and Karen for inviting me here today.
Excellent. Thank you very much, David. Pleasure is all ours. Well, there will be more of these. Karen, are you able to say who's on next? Is it CIMAC coming up with
CIMAC next week? Yes.
Yeah, excellent. So that'll be good. Well, thank you for everybody for attending. Thank particularly to David for that presentation, and please attend future No Limits events. Thank you very much for everybody. Karen, I think that's it.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good day, guys. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.